My friend Steven asked me to come by. He's the king of funky, and I love everything about his shop. We collaborated on his Dodge Roadster a few years ago, and I'm glad to see he's still plugging away on it.
The nice thing, too, is just keep on adding to it. You can always add little things here, just little details.
No, it looks perfect. That's the thing, it is aged to perfection.
Yeah. I put turn signals inside the lens, kind of like the old Volkswagens. I've been driving it a little here and there.
It sounds good, too.
Nice little miss.
Yeah, right, to give it the authentic old-fashioned feeling, right? Steven is a man of many talents, to say the least. His work is all over the automotive game.
Want to see what it looks like inside?
Yes, sir.
Come on.
He and his crew restore vintage trailers with a super meticulous attention to detail. This is super deluxe. Like, if you're missing a piece of this, it just doesn't exist. You gotta make it.
We make, yes. They don't build it like this anymore.
And he's also a partner in Funky Junk Farms. It's a collective of rare, unique, unobtainable things, you know, the cool stuff. All the things.
Yeah.
I just got a couple older pinball machines, man. This stuff is like antique.
It's funny, we have the same taste, kind of.
Hey, cool stuff, right?
Yeah.
The big attraction to this whole shop is just the range, you know, the variety of everything. So funky junk, yeah, that explains it, but a lot of this stuff is super nice. Walking around here is like an inspiration overload.
Funky junk.
Last but not least, Steven is a picture car coordinator, and he's at the top of his game in that as well. Let's just say he's worked on some incredible movies with all the right stuff. You know, the cars are always impeccable.
Yeah, this film project I have, it's a period piece, but it's a weird period piece. I can't tell you exactly what it is, but I have an idea. I'll show you kind of what we're looking for. And I like to use my friends, guys like you that are into what I'm into.
Sure,
and get
aesthetic, yeah. Steven's projects are always this way, hidden in a veil of mystery. You're working with bits and pieces of information, but later when the movie comes out, you say, oh, wow, okay, I see the big picture now. This is how it fits in. Behind door number 6, 7, 8, 9, and 11. You got a lot of doors here, sir. Oh, wow.
Can't have enough doors.
Look at this thing. Man, this is a real pile of stuff. What is this thing?
It's actually a 1927 Dodge.
Dodge, right, okay, cool. Walking up on this thing at first, I'm like, whoa, this is like straight out of like a museum or something. Where did they find this? It looks like the real deal. Did you like outfit this? Or?
Well, during World War II, during gas rationing, everybody turned their old cars into a pickup truck to get around the rationing. I added everything to it, of course, you know, with all the stuff I collect.
Right, right.
Almost like it was a magnet to it. Everything wanted to get on this thing.
It looks authentic to me. This is a perfect example of what Steven does. The director or whoever says, we need something that looks exactly like it would have been there. It's gotta be period correct. It's gotta look like a real thing, not some movie prop.
I call it the Prospector.
Yes.
During the Dust Bowl era, right after the Depression, everybody's trying to move west for a job from Oklahoma or wherever.
Right.
And just gacked out the thing with everything they needed to make it across.
Sure.
And to make a living coming across.
This is what I like about Steven's world. It's not really about making the coolest car, the meanest lead sled. There's always a unique purpose about everything.
Traveling salesman suitcase back here, shoe shiner, shoes, boat with his fishing gear here.
Yeah, do a little like fishing, a little crabbing.
Commercial fishing. No job is too big, no job too little for this guy.
I understand now.
Here we go.
Oh, that's cool.
Razor.
A little mirror in there somewhere, too. For the prospector on the go that needs to keep a clean face. I could relate to this guy, you know, the owner of the car, right? He's traveling around, he's got some skills, kind of homeless, but he's got all his gear. Literally, they would have thrown everything on their car, including the kitchen sink. So I think Steven nailed it on the Prospector. Oh, what the heck is this thing?
That is his lucky rabbit's foot.
Ooh, I don't even know what creature that came off.
Just happened to come off an otter instead. This is not exactly, you know, what we're going for, but the style, you know, the period of the vehicle, and not so much of this on here, but
working man's vehicle.
Exactly.
I gotcha. These are the loose parameters I thrive on, you know? He's telling me it looks sort of like this, it feels kind of like this, but different. You know, I love the freedom it offers and the direction, so I'm in 100%.
You got anything like this?
You know, I got some stuff, and as usual, I got nothing to show you, but I got a lot of ideas. I've done a lot of different projects, but never anything like with this certain criteria.
Right.
I really feel like Steven was inviting me over for me to just say, oh yeah, I have this one thing, and I'll send you some pictures. But no, I think I've got a different idea. I think I really want to create something for this project. Let me get my thinking cap on. That's what my car's gonna have in the front seat, a thinking cap. And it'll just get rid of all these tools. I'm more of an idea guy. Oh, there it is, right there. Perfect.
You aren't the only one with a thinking cap.
Got all the gear. The conversation with Steven was pretty interesting. You know, he's talking about antiques, old stuff. I'm thinking, I live on a ranch built in 1940. This place is surrounded. It's full of that stuff. Look at this truck, for instance. This is a time capsule. This has never changed. It's been in service for who knows how many decades. You see it's got the curved windshield, so that puts it around the mid-50s, I believe. So therein lies the catch. It's definitely too new. The treasure trove does not end here. I got another project that's a truck, and it's much earlier. Might not look like much sitting here, but this is a bona fide Model A Ford. Definitely the right era. This is one of those projects that's been in the queue for years, you know? I got it, I had some ideas, do some work, put it away. It's happened multiple times. I modified it, made the fenders a little wider. Someone had shortened up the bed on it quite a bit. It's kind of an interesting look. It's a real shorty. I just changed my mind about it a lot. That's why the body and bed were sitting in here with the fenders. But this project seems like this might be a pretty good fit for it. One of the challenges with this project and the stagnation of it is it's mixed up of all years and handmade parts. She's a biggin'. Cab is a 28, 29. The bed, I don't know what year it's from. The front fenders are 1931. The rear fenders, I think, are 31, but they're car fenders, so it's been a bit of a challenge to mate all this together. Back in the day, if you were going through the junkyard, this probably could be the same thing you'd run up against. That looks like a depression era truck, for sure. Steven's car was like a 1920-something, 30-something Dodge. This is a 29 Ford. They'd be friends back in the day. If it was my great-great-grandfather or whatever, right? He was a welder and he was in the cars and he's like, oh man, I found this clapped out old 29 Ford. We're not talking about bankers or lawyers. We're talking about the average Joe who's doing whatever it takes to keep his car on the road. And that's the thing, this looks super loose, but that's only half of the puzzle. I got the chassis, that was in storage too, and that's in a different course of development. It is a 29 Model A chassis. Basically been in and out of storage for 8-10 years. I work on it whenever I have a chance or I'm inspired. Pretty cool setup. It's been fully boxed, fully reinforced. Obviously got a V8 in it, brand new automatic trans, and the rear axle's from a Ford pickup. The whole front suspension is from Speedway. It's the drop tube axle with disc brakes, and then 16-inch rims. I was digging these with the old school Firestone tires. And I haven't started the engine yet. You know, this is a good used engine, as I'm told, ran well when parked. All we gotta do is put a bunch of parts together and see if it's actually gonna go. The old does it run quandary. One of the main requirements Steven had is it's gotta run. That way they can move it around the set, different shots, etc. If I can make it work, then it'll fit the bill. Now, a lot of those consummate professionals will say, nothing hits the floor, nothing hits the table. Every piece you come off gets bagged and tagged. This is not the case with this project. After a project's been sidelined a bunch of times over the years, you really gotta kind of sort it out, pick up the pieces and figure out where you left off. Like, oh, there's the nuts for the carburetor. Ooh, look, Volkswagen parts. Did I leave gas in it? Is there keys in the ignition? Is there oil in the engine? There's a lot of issues to contend with, and I'm kind of scratching my head, like, where did I leave off on this one? Distributor clamp. There it is. So now, Chevrolet 350 small block firing order. Everybody's got that memorized. What is it? 8675309. No, wait a second, wrong song. One of the requirements of this build is it's gotta look old, so you're not gonna see any of this mechanical stuff. So Ford, Chevy, VW, it doesn't matter what's in there. The old no oil trick. There's no oil at all in there. That's one of the things that a crew has in its benefits is you could always kind of blame it on somebody else, but it's all me here and I never really pay attention to where I left off. So you're gonna have to check out multiple things. This is a custom blend of startup oil. I don't look stressed, do I? Oil pressure, check. Now for the real test. I love those swirly straws. I gotta get some more of them for my high C. As they say, it's tea time. Prepare for ignition. I heard a little something. That was close. That's a fire. Now I'll cook your seals. What we have here is a failure to communicate. It's a good thing the inspectors aren't here because I could see the alarm bells going off in a big way, but I know that's just a simple backfire. I'm always a little surprised when something actually works. Sweet Sabella success. I think Project Dust Bowl is go. That's the green light I needed to see. Hollywood, here we come. Super stoked that that engine actually works. It's good news. Last night, I got a little excited and I brought that body in here. This is already looking pretty Depression era. We gotta get rid of all that chrome. It's a little too exciting. Nobody is gonna be depressed looking at that, so I wanna build a full hood. This is the usual full custom start, a laundry list of parts from all over the map. I got a new radiator, a reproduction grill shell, a crusty old hood. Sounds like the recipe for success. Whatever I make is gonna be new material, unfortunately. So I just wanna put this radiator on, take a look. Oh yeah, there's a problem right there. Maybe that's a car hood? I don't know if there's a difference between the car and the truck body. This slimline fan, I got tons of room in here. Maybe I'll just move this thing back. I'll put the tires on the ground and see what that looks like. Because you know, I can't just let it be a jalopy. It's gotta have some flavor to it. That's how the Russells staked their claim back in the day in the new world. Little recycling, little repurposing of used parts, and a little dog training on the side. All right, let's see how it fits now. Oh, I like it. Pretty cool, because it has a pretty sharp down turn in the hood line. Something I wasn't expecting, considering it's all stock, but hey, what do I know? Working my way front to back, this hood rig sets off a good start. It's cool, but not too custom beyond its years. You can see the hood here is overlapping the body, and then it's missing a piece in here. So I'm gonna have to remedy that. First step in this hood rejuvenation process is to add some support. We gotta lock it in place to keep everything in line. Maybe we'll make these lower panels first, and then we'll patch in the sides. These hoods are typically hinged in bore pieces, and I never like the way they fit. They always seem like they're kind of jacked up. I'm gonna weld these to this, that way it's a definite fit. Just slapping a couple loose pieces of sheet metal on the side of this hood ain't gonna do the trick. I need to create a body panel that'll stay in shape as this jalopy's bouncing down the road. I'm gonna make 3 sides with hem edges, so it'll give it some rigidity. Anytime you're working with sheet metal, it's just a flimsy sheet. It has no real form. So when you start to use tools on it, like the sheet metal brake or the English wheel, it creates a little stiffening in the panels to hold its shape. This is a real simple way to just hammer your own kind of angle into this. See, it's got a radiused edge. I don't need to follow that line exactly, but I don't want it to be square. You can use this type of forming on pretty much anything you want to make. The main thing is nobody wants to be square. So you achieve the same kind of edge as this, but you're around the corner with it. So I hemmed over another piece of this steel so it got double thick, and that'll fix this mismatch in the hood alignment. That's pretty much the look. The thing I'm having a hard time with is the value, you know, the rust versus the new metal. I'm just gonna kind of haze it out a little bit. Working with new metal on an old project, it's gonna be a contrast of color, so we're gonna have to come up with a creative solution to blend this all together. The front end's fine. I'll match the other side to that. That looks good. The black paint puts us in the ballpark, but I'm gonna have to see what happens later to figure out how to congeal all these different body panels. Next piece of the puzzle is this truck bed. You can see why I widened the fenders on the rear of the bed. They fit those tires so good. It's got a good look. I've never seen it with a hood on it. I mean, it's like an airplane fuselage. So I don't know what's happening here, but it looks right. It's like, what would a guy in the Dust Bowl do with this? Would I have just left it like this? Nope. So what are we gonna do? That was a question. What are we gonna do? Looks like I'm gonna have to channel me old grandpappy and consider the needs of my truck back in the days of old. Getting that hood on there, it's looking like a Model A Roadster pickup. Now that I got all that modern stuff tucked away, it looks pretty period correct. That being said, with the gas rationing, truck bed is definitely in order. It's gotta have one. And being that it's been shortened already, I'm gonna need storage, going across the Great Plains, etc. I think the first thing I would do is put a roof rack on it. And this particular build has its own parameters, but I'm up for the challenge. This is the Depression era, so materials are pretty scarce. You wouldn't have any of the stuff I usually use, like with the tube bender, a modern tubing, anything like that. So I went over to my friend's house and picked up a bunch of rusty material from out of the back. Got some square tube, found some rebar, piece of angle iron, standard issue stuff you would have seen back in the day. Even though this rack has to be functional, for me it's all about style. It's got to have some character that adds to the vehicle. Kind of like some wrought iron work, but it's a roof rack. If you went and put a big utility roof rack, right? I'm thinking a welding truck, right? Front to back. It wouldn't look like a Roadster pickup anymore, It would look like a box, basically. So I'm thinking about an abbreviated version, something that looks kind of lightweight, but definitely strong enough for you to hold some material. The only obvious choice is to channel great grandpappy Roussel. Ask him to help me envision my vision. So I put myself in that mindset and I say, here it is, self. We're in the 1940s. I envision a MIG welder and a self-automatic darkening welding helmet. That would be my first, there it is. That's my first wish. This unit right here. That would make things a lot faster. Then I'd like an electric angle grinder, an electric saw, and a beautiful workshop to do it in. Just like my old Pappy Roussel back in the day. We're gonna work with what we got and try to make it happen. First things first is the line of the roof, It's gotta look right. So as usual, it's time for a little of that envisioning procedure. And I like the height of the windshield pillar. So I think the rack will maybe just have a little rake to it. I know what happens when I sit in there. So that's with no seat pad. Tell you that Ian, 80 years ago, should have double checked his door hinges. Looks like it has plenty of headroom. Still has its streamlined appeal. I'd say Operation Roof Rack is a go. Oddly enough, great grandpappy Roussel works solo in his shop also. It's a great family tradition. Even in the fantasy workshop of the future, there are always technicalities. All right, so I'm gonna make a square and then set it on the car and measure it. My shop is anything but an assembly line of repetition. It's kind of like free thinking, anything goes. The new and the unusual is what I'm looking for. Sign of the times, I'm out of angle iron. I only found one piece in the scrapyard, so I'm short on the front. But I found this other piece that might be kind of interesting. It's got a nice rolled edge on the front. It's like when you're looking at the front, you're looking at this instead of a piece of angle iron. I'm also trying to make all the welds count too. You can see how it interacts with the rust. It looks kind of antique. If I go and sand anything, it's gonna be shiny. Now let's stick it on that car and see what happens. I like how that visor comes off. Front of it's cool. Back in the day, when you had to get it done, you used what you had. To start this part of the project off, I created these little pieces that insert into the stake pockets in the truck bed. Now we're getting in the ballpark. Looks kind of like gangster station wagon now. I'm feeling it. It's got a little bit of an attitude. But these uprights are definitely too flimsy in the back. Instead of replacing them, I'm thinking about adding more. It's like I want it to be A little bit ornate, but definitely, you know, seat of the pants fabrication. Let's pop one of them in there and see what happens. You see, it's starting to give it like a balance of light and texture. Is this a truck or is it a station wagon now? Let me clean my ears a little bit. Think this through. This is one of the problems with winging it. You know, you veer off the straight path, you make a couple decisions, and then you gotta recover from it. Typical stuff around here. I mean, I like it, but I wanna really like it. Pappy don't drive no grocery getter. We gotta keep the full custom flowing. See where this takes us. There's no sleep for the weary in the Dust Bowl. I had a few ideas about enhancing this roof rack, and I was itching to see how they looked. I got this rack in order, and I felt like it just needed more. Just this, it seemed like, you know, what is it gonna be, like a woody wagon? So I went ahead and added this top element to it, stuck them on to appear as if the pillars were coming through, and then this round rod hoop around the top. I think it finishes it off, you know, it really looks like a material rack and not just kind of some abbreviated shape of a body. What I find best with most of my process is just winging it. Go in with one hard idea and let it develop, you know, kind of organically. It's like, look at it and adjust as necessary. Now it's starting to get a little flavor, you know? Starting to feel a little more like a work truck. So typically, like with a work truck, you know, you got a roof over your head. And, you know, I'm thinking about the sunlight too. I think I want to make some kind of shade canopy over the cab portion of this. You know, it's got to look period correct, right? So it wouldn't be anything fancy. And you could just put a piece of plywood up there, but was plywood really around in the 40s? I don't know. I was like, oh, well, tarp would have been around, like covered wagon kind of material. This looks like it's been laying around the farm a bit. Do a little Honest Ian's custom upholstery on this jobber. You know, this is definitely a first, doing the old covered wagon. It's a sewing table. It's a chassis jig. It's a layout zone. It does all the things. I like that stain. It's like it's had some use in its life. It's had some stories behind it. Ever-evolving world of my upholstery apprenticeship. Grandpappy would be proud. These are like you see on the corners of every tarp you buy in the world. It's a kit to put these grommets in. There's a reason this process could have existed in the old days. It's very straightforward. You punch a hole in the material, you put the bottom of the grommet in, put the top piece on, and whack it into place. And voila, instant covered wagon material. Got my cape. Let's see if this thing flies. Now, this movie prop is period correct. It's as if it was built back in the day. But hey, don't get carried away. This is my fantasy. Back in the day, I had a cordless drill. Nice and taut. It's like old Pappy Roussel took his covered wagon skills and transferred them right over to his work truck. I think he'd say it was custom yet affordable. Been thinking of like accessories to, you know, dress this thing with that would be sort of period correct, you know, and this property is super old. It was here since 1940 and all the old man's tools were here on the property also. So there's one thing in particular that I just could never part with. The interesting thing about this property was it was truly an estate sale. They never got rid of anything and it all came in the package. This is one of the artifacts that came with the ranch. Look at those wagon wheels, super cool. The old man's welder, and it looks very authentically old. This in the back of that truck would be like, oh, it's an old antique welding truck, right? Just stick it on the car and see if it looks right. It's like Ben-Hur and his chariot up in here. It's pretty crusty. Starting to look older already. You know, that's the thing, like with a movie prop, you know, anything goes. It's only the limits of your imagination. Now it's really starting to have a personality, you know? Old Grandpappy Roussel, he was a welder, a craftsman. I mean, what do you think? He was a pro tennis player? I'm gonna work on this a little bit, get it to fit in there. Let's think about like how to enhance this, you know, what accessories, what really sells it as an antique welding truck. This welder was exactly the spark it needed. It's almost ready for its time on the silver screen. It's starting to get dusty around here, but this vintage work truck is coming to life. All right, I like where this truck's going. It's got that antique vibe, you know? I got a couple accessory boxes. These are more things that were on the ranch. You know, you would need storage in a work truck for sure, you know? So, I don't know, maybe a couple of those would fit in there. As they say, dynamite. I've been looking for the perfect use for these old explosive boxes, and I think this project's a perfect match. Get it? Match? Got my welder, got my dynamite, got my Model A. What more do you need? Before we get into the interior decorating side of things, we still have a few fabrication tasks we gotta tackle. It's times like this when one must ask themselves, what would great grandpappy do? I figure if this guy's a welder, he's gonna make his own seat frame. It's nothing new, but you can see, even if it's at that level, it's gonna be a tight fit for me to hop in here. You know, and once again, Grandpappy was way ahead of his time. I added 4 inches to the back of this cab because I don't fit in these little cars. So there's room in here. But if I put the stock Model A seat, I'm gonna be way up. You're gonna see, we don't need that. Like Harry and the Hendersons. Even though I'm building this for Steven's movie project, I wanna be able to use this later also. Got me thinking about that piece that I unbolted from the back of the welder. If I was a scavenger, I wouldn't need the tubing bender. I would just use this thing that was on the back of the welder. So that's half of the equation. This will do the seat back, but I also want some bends for the seat base. I got this old hand truck, and I'd say there's 2 good bends on there. Oh man, we got steering wheels. Definitely not the right era. This is a keeper though. I think this is a perfect lesson for up-and-coming fabricators. It's like, hey, if you don't have a tubing bender, grab a piece of bent tubing. Start that way. You got the front of the seat, and you got the top of the seat. Now you gotta fill in all the parts between. Creating something from used parts has its own set of challenges, of course. You know, if I was working with fresh stock, I'd be able to lay out something, dimensionally make it all nice and tight, 4 bends out of 1 piece. So this is kind of the opposite. You gotta make things from the small bits of material you can scavenge. My whole concept here is, you know, the edges of the seat that you see will have these nice radius bends. I'll miter the attachment corners under the seat where you won't even see it, you know, it'll be our little secret. I gotta say it's a natural fit. I love the way that this fits the original seat base, and then this just looks good, it works. To figure out the angle of the seat back, I'll tack it together in the car, gusset it, and then pull it back out and finish weld it. This material isn't super strong, so being that it's a backrest, could have a lot of leverage on it potentially, so by grabbing it like that, it really structures it. That'll work. The metal seat frame is only half the puzzle. You know, great grandpappy's a man of supreme luxury. Lastly, I'm gonna put a cross brace of steel rod in there. All right, so I had a little structural webbing in there. Plenty of room, plenty of headspace. I just need something over here. You could always just put a Model A steering wheel on it, but if you were gonna be a customizer, wouldn't you be looking around for that unique thing? I was looking at these steering wheels that were out there, and I'm like, yeah, a little too modern. And right next to it was this tricycle. Look at this thing. I don't think this is seriously vintage, but it looks like it's vintage. Tell me it's not a full custom steering wheel. These weird ideas of mine don't always work, but you never know till you try. Off with the wheel. You know, nothing says class like using a tricycle on your Model A Roadster pickup. Once again, I'm truly making my 7-year-old self proud. If I could only see me now. I think a little spacer, and a little steering wheel. Got some sitting, we got some steering. I don't know if Pappy was into tricycles, but if he was, I know he'd be proud. I've never had a tricycle wheel steering, so this is a first. This is a momentous occasion. Sometimes you take a detour to get to where you need to go. Next step, full custom upholstery. Honest Ian's upholstery is back in service. Challenge here is to make something comfy, but with the aesthetic that Pappy would have been able to achieve back in the day. Keep this here for 2 reasons. shop security, and upholstery. Some of my time spent at the sushi bar. This is a real creative process because it encompasses a lot of stuff. Set design, car building, character creating. I mean, yeah, the truck needs something to sit on, but more importantly, what does it say about Grandpappy and the world he lived in? We're talking about a great American story, talking about a great American struggle, talking about being depressed in the greatest of ways. This directly relates to a lot of the custom cars I built because it's like, what's the character? Like, what's the reason for this thing at all, right? Oh yeah, it was like a real deal craftsman from back in the day put this together. Looks like a seat. Pressure fits right into place. Ladies and gentlemen, presenting the oldest trick in the book. Oh, my lumbar support. Pretty darn cushy. I like it because in here it has like that chop top feel. Like even though it looks a little bit like Fred Flintstone's car, it still feels pretty special. We all know who had the coolest car in the town of Bedrock, and it sure wasn't Barney. Perfect, look at this. The glue is still active between the two things, and doesn't that look designer? That's the thing, the happy accidents. Lesson here is to keep an open mind, don't overcomplicate things. Sometimes you'll get something that you didn't even plan for. Looks like $1 million, well, at least 10 bucks. Not $1 million bucks, but some bucks. Piece by piece, you know, I don't really know what this thing's gonna look like in the end. I'm just picking at it. All of a sudden, it's a work truck, right? It's a welder's truck. I hid the modern engine with the hood, but still looking in there, you know that that's a nice brand new aluminum radiator. So I wanna put some kind of a grill screen in front of it, and I came up with two options. Yeah, we got these two cool screens. One was the front screen door of the house, and one was the rear. They look very similar, but I think this one's steel and this one's aluminum. That's kind of fancy. Try a little rust. That works. First I thought, ooh, aluminum, that's classy, but that tone of distressed, it's painted silver, but it's rusty, works good. Even after all these years of custom car building, I'm never absolutely positive of what's gonna work and what's not gonna work. You know, there's always something in the mighty mock-up. Put a little bit of a puff in it as I welded it too, the heat. Just a little something that adds a shroud of mystery to what's going on beneath. That's what I was going for. It's old-fashioned, but looks cool. Tornado came through Oklahoma, tore the screen door off, repurposed it. In the years past when I was working on this car, you know, a couple of things I built custom on this were the windshield pillars, the A-pillars, and the actual windshield frame. So I made this nice arch that fits the cowl. And you can see it fits in here pretty darn close, but putting this roof rack on, it's too tall now. Nothing a little slice and dice can't fix. Let's make sure we keep the front the front. Little nonsense now and then. Front. There's something to be said for phonetics, right? Spell it like you say it. Front to shut door. Usually what I do is set up the template for the glass first. So I got some acrylic. I'm just gonna put the acrylic in place, finish everything up, and then last I'll have the glass cut. One of the problems with using this tubing is it's just a flat surface on both sides. We want this glass to ultimately seem like it's flush mounted in there, so we're gonna have to do a little cutting into this tube shape. Do a little sanding, a little finishing. I think that's really coming together. Even though this is an acrylic mock-up, it really adds to the finishing of it where you're not just looking through an empty space. This is the actual windshield to come. Seat looks good, interior's coming together. Love the grille and the windshield fits. Today was a good day. I got a few more tricks up my sleeve, and then this project is off to Stevens to begin its illustrious career as a Hollywood starlet. I got my fanciest hat on. I'm doing all I can to channel old Grandpappy into this car. There's one thing I know about this career. Keep it unconventional. I think it's high time we brought a little prospecting into this build. Before you think I've gone completely off the deep end, panning for gold in the desert, give me a chance. I haven't completely lost it. Not yet, at least. For this next experiment, I need a little bit of desert, a little bit of water. See, I got my sifting machine set up out here, so I can get only the finest grind. You don't want no rocks, no sticks, no seeds, no stems. So what you got inside there is authentic, clean, sifted Mojave Fresh. I always try to keep my mind open, you know, look for different ideas, techniques when it comes to car building. Sometimes they come out of left field, but if you want different results, you gotta take different approaches. I figure if I want something to look like it's been out in the desert for a long time, might as well just use the desert. I had acquired all this stuff through the years, you know, it was predestined to have this type of headlights, the bumpers, etc. The mix-up between the 31 kind of graceful fenders and the earlier cab, pretty cool to see it all coming together. When I assembled this car, I quick spray canned it, because, you know, Fords are black, right? It still just looked too fresh. It still shows all the work in the welds. It's pretty rough. It just needs a little grit, you know? It needs to look like it's been through something. It's got the history, and I'm gonna give it a whirl. Let's see what this process will do. I picked up one of these. It's a texture gun, like you spray textured walls with. And I was thinking, you know, why don't I just texture the car with sand? Make it look like it's been all dustified. Drywall, dirt, it's all the same in the end, right? I guess we'll see. I've had more harebrained schemes than this, you know, some kind of plastic melting bubble top thing, but this is pretty interesting. Let's see how it pans out. Probably the rarest thing in the desert, the old H2O. And add some air to the equation. And add a little mud to the equation. You might be wondering where I got this super cool scoop. The Volkswagen valve cover. A little bit in every project. I gotta say, some people might do a test piece. Not me. I'm just going for it. I'm thinking that this process is gonna be similar to spraying metal flake, you know, in a paint job. So you have this solid material and you want to broadcast it evenly over the surface. I got to keep mixing it up in there to get it to flow evenly. I don't want any blotches. That's the thing about winging it. You got to pay attention. You got to adapt as the process unfolds. Yeah, look, now it's just about at the right ratio. If only great-grandpappy could see me now. He'd say, son, you done lost your mind. You know, this area of the fender here would have a lot of mud and sand coming off of it. I'm trying to bring that. Yeah, the natural look of this car going through a rainstorm in the desert multiple times would be just that, you know, showering effect, dust landing on it, and I'm trying to give it a little of all that action. It's like a desert rain shower. All the authentic grit and mist and filth. It looks real. This is good fortune. It's almost like pennies from heaven. It's working, by golly. So this is what a car would look like, I think, if it drove here from Oklahoma through the desert. You know, the stippling of the water, hitting the sand and actually gluing it to the car. But you see it mellowed out the chrome on the rims. That works. The tires look like they've been scrubbing through the desert for years. I like it. This might be the most important effect of the whole process. You know, you had so many values of new versus old, etc. Adding this application really looks like the car was put together in one session and used. A few more details to put together and it's ready to show to Steven. This project definitely turned a corner. You know, I started, remember, with nothing to present to him. And I just went out on a tangent with this. I'm feeling pretty confident it's gonna fit the bill. Let's see what Steven thinks. I haven't talked to Steven since the day I left his shop, and I'm kind of curious as to what he's gonna have to say about this.
What do we have here?
It's a little bit of everything, but it's basically a Model A. Just parts I had laying around.
Like they would do back in the day if they're building something on a farm. That's what it should be, is pieces of everything. Looks great. I like the stitches, the welds on it.
I was thinking if this character was a craftsman, he was more like a metal worker, like a welder, so I just left everything showing.
Which is perfect. I love the wheel wells, the fenders with that spare tire piece in there. Taillights look good on here, the way they said. whatever's laying around. Nail even the canvas on the roof up there. It's gonna work.
I think Steven treated this project with me much like I treat a project with the other people I collaborate with, you know? Tell them just enough so that they can work forward on something, but not so much where you're gonna dictate the end result. Check out the steering wheel. You know your funky junk. Name that part. Where'd that come from?
This came off an old tricycle.
Bang! He knows the unit.
But you also dared and put it on there. Great steering wheel.
The more time he spends looking it over, you know, I see his head nodding and he's like, yeah, this is like real steel. This is not a fake movie prop. It's an actual Ford vehicle. Does it run? But the good news is everything underneath is modern. It's got a Chevy 350. Drivetrain is brand new.
It's just perfect. So if we were shooting out here, you could see how perfect it fits for the look. Just
this is Wild West, man. What more do you want than a jalopy out west, right? And nothing sells a car like the test drive. You ready?
Sure.
Hop in. It's all you.
All right. Now that's a positive.
I really wanted Steven to just get in there while the engine was cold, start it, and drive it, because like this is what you're gonna get on a cold start and how it runs.
So this is about the speed we'll be going.
Looks good, man.
20 times.
Right.
Through the shot.
I mean, that's the whole thing. A car sitting in the garage is one thing, but when it's out in the desert, on the movie set, as he's kind of envisioning it, I think that seals the deal.
Feels great.
My favorite thing about it, like with so much, is the stance. It's like it looks kind of like a jalopy, but it's got a cool line. It's a little bit chopped, it's a little bit raked. I love the front grille specifically, that mesh. The Model T taillights on the back, they're a little funky. And then the roof rack, that's my favorite thing. It's got a good look.
And then back to one.
This project is unique in that it had an end goal. I don't know, maybe I'll start with a cartoon character for real next time and then build a car towards that. I can see the smile from a mile away right now. It's a cool car to drive.
Man.
How's it treating you?
Perfect. Perfect picture car.
Nice. Well, I learned from the best, man. I did exactly what you told me.
Come on. No, it's great because it goes forward, it goes reverse, it turns, it stops, it doesn't overheat, especially when you only have one. We don't have a backup. This is it.
That's the story of my life, man. I got no other plan B.
You actually look so good in that thing.
I love it, man. I feel like an Okie from Muskogee.
Yeah.
Heading out west.
Great job, great job. You made my job a lot easier.
With every project, that's always what I'm looking for. Thanks, you done good. To pin that for him on this project, I feel good. Have fun out there in TV land.
Man.
You could drive it home. I don't need it anymore.
No, I don't like using my movie miles on the street.
Gotcha.
We'll put it on a hauler.
Yeah, it's always on borrowed time, right?
That's right.
Another project checked off the list. You know, I did not see this one coming, but it ended up really good. I got so many ideas I've been ruminating on. It's nice to get this project out of the way. Next project's gonna be pretty wild. I can't wait to get started.